Do you ever get the sense that life is amazing? You are breathing. You have a mind that is aware. What is this experience? Of course, often we have problems and stresses that weigh on our minds. But if we can just take a step back from the dramas playing out on the stages of our lives and imagine exiting the theater building entirely, we step into an entirely different consciousness. There are no words that can adequately describe this experience of just being. And I can say this even when my body is in pain, because just to have a consciousness that can be aware, I'm in this human form, and I can use my mind to make choices or set goals, create meaning, form relationships, dream, and so forth. There's something quite mystical and yet completely simple and ordinary about life. And that begs the question, why are we here? What's the purpose? In the Harry Potter series, in the last episode, Harry's in the Bardo at a train station between one life and the next, and he asks Dumbledore, the wizard, "Is this all happening in my head, or is it real?" Dumbledore replies, "Of course it's all happening in your head. Why should that make it any less real? We have choices. We can board a train towards just about anywhere if we choose. And if we stubbornly resist choice or say there's no such thing as free will, that's a choice by default, based on the unconscious conditioning that often determines our actions. In Buddhism, the teaching on precious human rebirth, which was covered briefly in the last session, encourages us to make a choice based on the incredible potential we have, summarized in the 8 freedoms and 10 fortunes. And that conscious choice is then further informed by today's topic, which is death. Okay, so maybe now you're wondering why you signed up for this class, where such miserable topics are discussed, but let's be honest, American culture has always worshipped youth and denied aging and death. Advertising has gotten extremely sophisticated in its ability to increase the sales for just about anything from cosmetics, food, pharmaceuticals, cars. The hidden message in these ads is that by buying certain products, we can look and feel younger. Perhaps you've heard of a book by Deepak Chopra, Timeless Mind, Ageless Body. He got the first part right, but sorry to break it to you, Deepak, the body ages, and that process is not what most people would call fun. And eventually we all die. There's no way to avoid this, though advertising will keep trying to cloak the truth with clever fictions. However, if we face the impermanence of our lives with an honest self-awareness and do not cling to the unrealistic notion that we'll never die, then life becomes more beautiful because we are aligned with wisdom. We open the doorway to a deeper kind of freedom that is no longer fighting the laws of nature and the universe. Pretty sure all of us accept that we will die intellectually someday, but we normally assume that it will be sometime far off in the future and not today. And so we never really think about it, and thus we fail to prepare ourselves for the moment when death actually arrives. Of course, there is a mundane level of preparation, which includes having a living will prepared, giving some thought to questions about whether to be buried, cremated, or composted. But the deep preparation is being mentally prepared to let go of this life with a sense of peace and grace, or at the very least, with no regrets. So before we dive into the 9-point death meditation, it's important to contextualize death within the Lam Rim. So once we realize how precious our current opportunity is, making our lives meaningful from a Buddhist perspective involves 3 scopes or levels of practice: small, medium, and great. Small scope practitioners are motivated by the goal to achieve a good rebirth so that they can continue to make use of the human situation to practice Dharma, create positive karma, and avoid the suffering of being reborn in a lower realm of existence. In short, they give up clinging to the brief pleasures of this life in order to work towards a long-term benefit. Medium scope practitioners reflect that even if I achieve a fortunate rebirth as a human, I'll still be subjected to the sufferings of being born in a body that is under the control of delusions and karma, and in particular, the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. With that understanding, they make an aspiration to attain liberation or nirvana, complete freedom from samsara, which is the Sanskrit term for cyclic existence, or continual rebirth under the control of delusions and karma. Great scope practitioners take the widest possible view and reflect that even if I attain complete liberation and freedom from suffering since beginningless time, all other sentient beings, especially the infinite mothers from previous lives, have been incredibly kind to me in so many ways. How can I simply aspire for my own liberation with no thought to their well-being? Based on that process of reflection, they aspire to achieve full awakening, not simply attaining personal peace, but the omniscience of enlightenment solely for the purpose of being of highest benefit to all others. Of course, in attaining complete enlightenment, one also attains one's own goal of peace and happiness as a side effect. Although these are described as 3 separate paths, the intent of the Lam Rim is that the higher paths build upon the lower ones, and that everyone will eventually enter the great scope and aspire for full enlightenment. So the lower scope begins with the recognition that we will die, and having a sense of concern about not being born into an unfortunate state of existence. And I'll just mention a few other points of the outline here. If we don't practice being aware of death, we won't be prepared for when it comes. We'll fail to take advantage of the opportunity to develop our mind in the Dharma. And we risk dying under the influence of negative karma. So there's a lot that I'm skipping over here, and perhaps you'll be inspired to read some of the Lam Rim texts and commentaries. There's many good translations in English. When my first teacher went through the Lam Rim, we met a couple times a week for about 3 years, I think. And so you can really dive into it quite deeply. So I hope someday we'll have an opportunity like that together. But my goal with this class is just to plant a seed of interest. You can decide whether you want to water that seed and watch it grow. So the key meditation in this section is the 9-point death meditation. Just another word about meditation. We often think of it as something we do where we sit cross-legged in a chair and just focus on our breathing, calm our thoughts. So this is important, but there are many other kinds of meditation that we also need to learn. In the Lam Rim, we make a distinction between concentration or calming meditation and analytical meditation. In analytical meditation, we investigate topics like death by thinking about them from various angles. So just eliminating thoughts isn't necessarily the key to meditation. Sometimes we need to use thoughts. So we think about these different topics using examples from our own lives and hopefully reach a firm conclusion that accords with the teachings. So the analytical meditations and the calming meditations support one another. If we only learn to quiet the mind without developing analytical meditation, it's not possible to achieve deep transformation of the mind. So rather than me just continuing to talk here, let's do a guided 9-point meditation. So once again, find your alert sitting posture. It's a balance of alertness, but also ease, allowing the energy to flow. And as I read through the meditation, I'll read slowly and pause in places to give you time to silently reflect upon each point with examples from your own life. And recognize that the goal of this meditation on death isn't to generate a sense of fear that paralyzes you, but an awareness of Dharma that liberates you from getting caught up in meaningless activities in life, helping you make use of this precious opportunity. So there are 3 routes and 3 reasons within each route in this meditation. The first route is that death is certain. When death happens, it can't be reversed. Everyone dies. Kings, queens, celebrities, friends, strangers, our grandparents, parents, and sometimes even our children. Our lifespan is measured out according to the karma we've created in past lives in this life. Like sand in an hourglass, it runs out constantly, and we approach death closer with each passing moment. When we are alive, there is very little time for Dharma practice. Second root, the time of death is uncertain. We never think that I might die today, but it's possible. All that would have to occur is for breathing to stop for a little while, or the heart to stop beating. Think of death like a guest who is certain to arrive, but you aren't certain when. It's important to begin preparing for that guest now. Our lifespan is indefinite. People can die at any time, and we have probably all known friends or family who suddenly and unexpectedly died. There are many conditions for death and relatively few that support life. Every day when we drive on the road, another vehicle could crash into us at any moment. Disease and pandemics, food that has gone bad or has some chemical problem, bacteria, fires, floods, storms, medical errors, random accidents, asteroids, too many guns in our society. Our bodies are relatively fragile. Even a tiny needle prick or a bacteria or a virus can kill us. Although we feel invincible and permanent, This is a form of delusion. Our life is maintained through a very delicate balance of conditions, which is easy to disrupt. The third root, only our Dharma practice can help us at the time of death. Wealth cannot help us. It can neither stop the process of death or change our experience of it. Doesn't matter how much money we have. Friends and relatives cannot help us at the time of death. Everyone must go on alone according to our karma. And sometimes the presence of friends and relatives can be a hindrance if they trigger strong emotions, such as attachment. And lastly, our body cannot help us at the time of death. As we die, the consciousness slowly withdraws from our sensory organs, leaving us helpless and alone with only our mind, unable to hear, see, or speak to others. Based on these reflections and conclusion, make a strong determination to not procrastinate and practice pure Dharma at all times. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forever.